begin with the invocation. This prayer is based on 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 to 2. And it says, I urge then, first of all, that requests, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for everyone, for kings and all those in authority, that may live peaceful now, quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. We bow our heads. Lord, our Commander-in-Chief and other military leaders are responsible for developing and maintaining a strong and skilled military. They have the daunting task of choosing the strategies that will make our armed forces effective. I lift up our President, we lift up our President and all of our military leaders before your throne of grace and ask you to guide and strengthen them. Give them godly wisdom, discernment, and discretion in making policy decisions that affect the lives of our armed forces and the defense of our nation. Show them strategies and methods of operation that are efficient and successful. Give them the endurance to keep pace with the long hours and constantly changing requirements. Help them defeat our enemies before the enemy can destroy other people. May we hear your voice and act upon your wisdom on behalf of us all. Amen. Veterans Coordinator, Mr. Randazzo, I understand you have some special guests. If you want to do an introduction, I would appreciate that. They are going to lead us in a pledge. Is that correct?
Yes, they're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. You want to go ahead and say your name?
I'm Peyton, and I'm in 3rd grade.
And what are you?
I am Riley, and I am in 5th grade.
5th grade.
I'm Austin, I'm in 6th grade.
I'm Austin, and I'm in 8th grade.
Wow. Austin and Austin. Okay, thank you very much. So come on up here, and you can lead us in a pledge. Here you go. Come on, everybody can come on up. Yep, everybody can come on up. There you go. Okay.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, would you like to begin the meeting? Okay, go ahead. To do it right. She's going to show us how this is supposed to be done here. Okay, now we can't do anything until you start the meeting here, so go ahead and sit down, get comfortable. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting of the Shelby Township Board of Trustees to order.
Go, Riley. And Riley, I just want to say that sounds like you've been blessed. I know you had open heart surgery. You came out of it successfully, and we're so glad you're here today to celebrate with us. Thank you very much for coming to the meeting.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, as you can see, we only have one camera today, and I said that we would have all the cameras working. Well, it didn't quite work out. But I think there's someone here that can explain why we don't have all the cameras working and why the sound is not quite up to par, a lot better than I. His name is Nick Monticelli. Nick, from our IT department, if you could come up and kind of give us a little bit of an explanation of what's going on, when will it be fixed, and I'll let you take it from here. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Should I turn this around? Rick, do you want to turn around now? No. Other Rick? Okay. Hi, everybody. So this is a two-phase project. If you look in the back corner over by Chief and my other IT compadre and DC Coyle, there's a pile of stuff in the back of the room. A lot of it is coming in right now. Some of it came in actually yesterday. We are waiting for a couple more things to be delivered tomorrow, which will allow us to start the process to essentially tear that entire room out and start that process. If you look at your screens on to my right and left, you can see what that room kind of looks like right now. Somehow Rick Giffen is stuffed in one of the corners pressing buttons in there. And as we cycle through, you'll kind of see that there is a lot of work that needs to be done. We had a system failure in there, I believe it was in February. And because of that, we essentially have to redesign and re-engineer the entire room. So we are in the process of doing that as we speak. Most of that equipment will be torn out starting tomorrow. I didn't want to do it today and risk not having something available for tonight's board meeting. So that is all coming out right now to put all the cameras back in function. My best estimate, we should have that running within 3 weeks, hopefully sooner. It's just a matter of how fast I can make it work. So that's inside of this room. I know a lot of you have also had questions about the broadcast quality that you've been seeing on Shelby TV as well. And that, again, it's a two-phase type of thing. So number one is the broadcast that originates from this room, which then goes down a fiber line to our offices, which is in the community center with the senior center and the library. Once the signal gets there, then we have to transmit that to all of your cable providers, which would be Comcast, Wide Open West, and AT&T. That system is also in an overhaul right now because of a systematic failure. It was kind of a perfect storm for us. So you can kind of see as Rick switches to the next area that project is almost done. This has been a much more extensive and a larger undertaking for us to redo everything at the same time. We weren't planning on having to do everything at the same time, but that is unfortunately Murphy's Law. So all of that equipment is in. We are waiting for a couple of minuscule things. It's amazing how one shelf can derail an entire project. So the shelves are supposed to be here tomorrow, I believe. Once we can get those in, the backup servers and everything, basically we didn't want to fire all this up until everything was ready to go. I didn't want to turn on the equipment until we had the proper security in place. I don't want someone hacking into the system. I don't want the batteries not in place. We don't want another systematic failure. So we've got everything now. Things, as you can see, are progressing quite nicely, and we should have everything back up and running, I would say, by late April, early May, as long as everything goes smoothly. And then once that equipment is up and running, you should get a nice clean picture and audio back in your homes. And as far as online goes, that will be done at the same time. Board members, any questions about what's happening? Okay, then.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
But if we do have other questions in 2 weeks, we know who to call. Okay. Also, you'll see him on WDIV as a reporter, but today he's our IT expert. And if this doesn't get fixed, he might be in here as a reporter. No, I'm just kidding. You better not be. Okay, thanks, Nick. I appreciate everything you do for us. Thank you. Also, Phil Randazzo, our Veterans Coordinator, he has an announcement. I understand we have a fundraiser coming.
Yes, we're working up to it. It's June 10th, but we'll give it a jump here, and that's why we have our young people in front of us right now here. And I appreciate everything you did, Riley, up here. You look good. You did a great job. And what you're looking at is the young musicians. Pete Powanski, sitting right over here. He owns the Music Makers Studio over 25 Mile and Shelby Road next to Steiny's. And Pete has, I don't know, 10, 15 bands. And so they're playing many, many events. But this particular event is held at Coyote Joe's June 10th. You'll be seeing more and more advertising going out as we get nearer to it. And all the proceeds made that they will be donated to the memorial that we have out here in front of our beautiful building here. So I'd like to thank these young people. And if anybody wants to see some great entertainment, I've seen them many times. I have grandchildren that are in your class, or your bands with you over there. So I follow them around a little bit, and they're fantastic. It's really great to see. So you can always touch base online with the Music Maker Studio. You get all the information out there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Randazzo, and thank you for everything you do for the veterans. We do appreciate your services. We thank you. And we also have Mr. Michael Ward, our coordinator for all the runs here in Shelby Township. I understand we've got a pretty important run coming up very soon. You want to come on up and tell us a little bit about that? Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to be back up here again. Just a real quick wrap up on a December event that was quite successful. We did the 7th annual Jingle Bell Run, and we had quite a successful outing. It was snow, it was icy, it was slippery, it was nasty conditions, and we had 600 people come out and participate in that event on December 17th. A couple that I want to highlight, the Shelby Police and EMS were there to help, and we had a few people fall and slip, and it was nice to have EMS there. Both the police and the EMS and the fire department do an outstanding job. Joe Youngblood's staff were an invaluable resource for us to make that all happen. And then AEW not only was a sponsor, but they provide 6 or 8 people that manage the parking. And you can imagine, it gets pretty big when you got 600 people. The good news is we gave over $13,000 away this year. It was 12 the year before, 10 the year before that. $13,000 to 10 or 11 charities. To give you a perspective, someone ran a race recently about 2 weeks ago at St. Clair Metro Park with about 1,400 runners, and they gave $3,000. We had 600, less than half, and we had over $13,000 go to 10 or 11 charities, which is quite a thing. It's nice with all the sponsors and their participation and everybody that comes out and has a good time, whether you walk, run, volunteers, many different businesses in the area that sponsored. The other interesting little twist, and I have to put this little piece in, is we're not really getting any press coverage anymore. We're not getting any Macomb Daily coverage, C&G News, the new Shelby paper that I see out there. Not a single one of them has yet to run any of these. And it's kind of interesting because I consider that a really upbeat, positive story. $13,000, people come out and have a great time. So if they're out there, hopefully they'll jump on the bandwagon and say, you know what, we got a positive story, let's get it out there. Coming up on April 20th is our third annual Run the Creek Glow Run. For anybody that says, oh, it's another run, who cares? Yeah, it's unique. We run it after dark on the back 9 holes of Cherry Creek Golf Course. It was first, the idea came from none other than Mark Hackle, and Mr. Viviano helped push that one, and he came to us to put it together. The first year we had over 600 participants. We had 450 last year. We're expecting 600 again this year. It's a giant after dark run, a 5K. We had an awesome kids run. We have a pizza party after. Earl Weber does an incredible job at opening up the entire course to us. And we do keep our police busy with all the cars and all. You can imagine with a group that big. And it's a unique event because even if you're a walker, we light it up with glow tubes. We make it safe. And it's a lot of fun to see all these people out there. And hopefully it'll be a little warmer than it's been the last year or two for that one as well. So that's a big event that's coming up. All the races are available on eastsideracingcompany.com. So anybody that wants to walk, if you're a walker, come out. It's a lot of fun. You still get all the goodies and treats and all the stuff that we provide as well. On May 6th is another very good run, the pennant race put on by the Kiwanis, and I'm helping them with that. What's important about that race, just like Run the Creek, is 100% of that money is going to Special Olympics, and Joe Youngblood directly benefits from that because it sends more of his kids. And I'm working a lot with his program now, in addition to a program I do in Toronto where I bring handicapped adults to Detroit. Been doing it 17 years. Now we're doing here in the last year with the local group, with his group of adults for this as well. And they're going to be recipients, and they're excited. Some of them are going to get to go to the state meet in June, and they wouldn't have been able to go without the funding. So what's nice about that run, it starts and finishes at Jimmy John's Park. You do a loop around the inside when you're done, and the ball players give everybody a medal. And it runs in and out of Riverbend, so good old Shelby Township getting a lot of publicity again for it as well. The last event's coming up in July, and I'll talk more about that one at a future meeting, but the Go for the Goal, it'll be our 13th year for that one. We've probably raised $80,000 to $90,000 over that 12 or 13 year span in there. We always get 500, 600 people, 5K, 10K. We have special runs for the special needs kids and all, and it's quite an event. So you can always track me down if you want through, go to Eastside Racing Company, go to the Hanson stores. If you want to track me down, you can call me at 586-484-5523. And we'll just keep pushing out all that money back to the community and seeing the community benefit from it. And that's really the most important thing. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ward. I do appreciate it. Again, it's Run the Creek. That's a 5K run or walk. So if you have any special requests, I'll probably be walking, and you can catch up with stuff as I'm walking with you. So I should be there on Friday, April 20th. I'm looking forward to that. Okay. And finally, the court. I think you heard the news about building a new court. And by the way, thank you very much for coming in. We do appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Mr. Doug Wozniak, I know you've been sitting on that committee for a long time, very busy, and it's come to a very nice conclusion. We have now broken ground for a new court. Can you go ahead and talk a little bit about how it's going to look and when it's going to be done?
Yeah, if you look to the screens to the right and the left, we've got a rendering of what the building's going to look like. I guess the key word here is finally. For those who haven't known, for the last 20 years, we've been trying to find a suitable house for the court, but not spend a lot of money on it. So last week, Wednesday, we had a groundbreaking. It's going to be $5.25 million, which we've allocated for that in budget. It's about 18,000 square feet.
Paid in cash?
Paid in cash, no new taxes, no bonds. We expect it to be done in early 2019, maybe a little before, but probably 2019. The court, of course, handles cases here in Shelby and Macomb Township and Utica. So they stay very, very busy. They're one of the busiest courts in the whole state. Last December, the board here voted unanimously to award a construction contract to Burnco from St. Clair Shores. And they have some experience building courts. They already built the 40th District Court in St. Clair Shores. The new structure comes to us at no cost to the township general fund. The construction is covered by a building fund that the court has been collecting for years. So I'd like to echo some of the sentiments that Judge Shepard stated. We tried to do this in a fiscally solid manner, and we budgeted for a building that will be safe and meet the needs of all the court users for decades. And it will be a building we can be proud of. So thanks to AEW also for their engineering and all their cooperation. They were invaluable in helping us with this. So that's the update.
And thank you for your leadership, and thank you for making sure this gets done on time and under budget. We appreciate that.
Thanks.
Okay, good. I've got a couple questions, too, from some people about why building a court right now. We've been wanting to build a court we've been talking about it for about 16 years. We've been saving for it for about 10 years. And the reason why we're building the court now is because the one we have now is not only does it have operational flaws, and I won't go into that, but it's also a safety hazard. And then when the prisoners get out of the vans and trucks, they're very close to our library patrons as well as senior citizens coming and going out of that building. So that's one of the primary reasons why we need the new court, and we need it now. So again, thank you very much, Mr. Wozniak. And one last thing, we do have a special guest, Mayor Tom Dion from Utica. Mayor Dion, thank you for coming. He told me he wanted to see exactly how a meeting is opened, and so that's why I brought the children in, so they could show you how we do it. So we're good. Thank you for coming. Do appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Grohl, can you please take the roll?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. Michael Flynn.
Here.
Stan Grotz here. Rick Staffikas.
Here.
John Vermeulen.
Here.
Vince Viviano.
Here.
Lynn Wilhelm.
Here.
And Doug Wozniak.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, Mr. Grohl, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda that has been presented?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Grohl.
Move to approve consent agenda as follows. A, minutes work session March 12, 2018. Board meeting March 20th, 2018. Move to approve the minutes as presented. B, the Poorhouse T&A Restaurant, Inc. requests new Class C liquor license. Move to grant local government approval to T&A Restaurant, Inc. for Class C license and SDM license with Sunday sales AM and Sunday sales permit for an establishment to be located at 50985 Hayes Road, Shelby Township. C, Old Settlers Post 4659 requests permission to solicit donations. Move to grant permission to veterans of foreign wars, Old Settlers Post 4659, to solicit donations at storefronts throughout Shelby Township for Puppy Days on May 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2018. All solicitors shall be readily identifiable, fully insured, and carry proper credentials. D, Building Department organizational change and Secretary 1 job description. Move to approve changes to the Building Department's organizational structure as presented, with the General Employee Civil Service Commission notify of the change, and to approve the revised job description for the position of Secretary 1 as presented. And B, well, no, actually it's E, bill run in the amount of $318,286.08. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the bill in that amount, and also move to approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Grote, seconded by Mr. Wozniak. Please take the roll.
Stan Grote, yes. Doug Wozniak?
Yes.
Michael Flynn?
Yes.
Rick Steffikas?
Yes.
John Vermeulen,
Yes.
Vince Viviano,
Yes.
and Lynn Wilhelm.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Grote. Ed, could you please put the agenda slides up? Thank you. We've got 9 items on the agenda. I'll go through them quickly. First agenda, Colleen Severance License Group Daycare Special Land Use for property located at 47080 Exeter Court. Item number 2, Fire and Police Pension System Financial Report. Item number 3, School Resource Officer. Number 4, a new hire, actually new hires. Item number 5, Department Head and Elected Official Compensation Resolutions. Item number 6, Stony Creek Trail Bridges, proposal from Asti Environmental. Number 7, Town Hall Toilet Room renovations. Number 8, Fire Station number 4, additional construction costs. And finally, number 9, appointments to the DDA, and that'll be our last item for the night.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Grote.
Move to approve regular agenda, and I think you misspoke on number 7. It's a Township Hall.
Oh, Township Hall. Okay, thank you.
All right, so
What did I say, my office?
You said, no, you said
Okay.
Town Hall.
Okay, good. Still can't get that bathroom in my office, huh? Folks, I'm just kidding, no calls, okay.
All right, I made a motion to approve agenda as you
Second.
presented.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Grote, seconded by Mr. Wozniak. Okay, so now we have an agenda on residents. This,
Go in
oh,
favor.
let's go ahead and take a vote. Yep,
No,
roll
you
call.
don't need a roll.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, you got it.
go ahead. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now, residents, this is your opportunity for you to address the board regarding any items which I've just reviewed on the agenda this evening. Your comments pursuant to board policy are limited to 3 minutes. Please keep in mind that while the scope of your discussion at this point of the meeting should be limited to the agenda items, you will also have an opportunity at the end of the meeting to discuss a wider range of topics that relate to township business.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I put down a few notes on this to
Go
make sure
ahead.
we have a clarification on
Yep.
this. All right. For all the residents out there, to clear up any misconceptions about the availability of our agenda. For those persons who wish to review the items that are part of the meeting agenda, you have an opportunity for such a review by finding the agenda on the Shelby Township website or by visiting the Shelby Township Municipal Building during business hours. A copy of the agenda is available for anyone's review in the municipal building on Friday, Monday, and Tuesday before each regularly scheduled township board meeting. You may also visit the township website on those days and additionally on Saturday and Sunday before the scheduled board meeting. The township website is shelbytwip.org, or if you need further information, the supervisor will always answer any questions regarding the agenda, and his number is 586-731-5154. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Wozniak, and I know you've mentioned this many times in other meetings, but I think it's a great reminder. Nothing new here, but it's a great reminder that our agenda is always here, anytime, 24/7. Thanks for those great words. Appreciate that. Anyone? Would someone like to come up and with questions? Yes. Questions, comments about the agenda items?
Agenda item number 8, additional fire station number 4 construction cost. How come you have overriding cost on the proposed amount of money that was allotted to build this station? And how much are we talking about here?
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, come on up.
Item 4, are they new hires or replacement hires? And if they are new hires, what is the capacity of the police department going to be now? And then item 5, is that department heads and elected officials compensation resolution? Is that going to cost the township more money by paying this, or is it going to be a reduction? And the toilets that you're talking about, why wasn't that done when you had the front end of the offices done that could have been figured out and done all at the same time. And it did make an inconvenience when they did the renovation in the front.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll bring the business up to the board, and we'll go ahead and get started with item number 1, and we've recorded those questions. We will answer them as we get to those items.
Good evening, Board. Last month, the Planning Commission reviewed and recommended approval for a child care facility for special land use for more than 6 children. Child care facilities are an approved use in a residential zoning district, provided that there are no more than 6 children. Over 6 children require special land use approval. The applicant operates a daycare center at 47080 Exeter Court. She's requesting to expand more than 6 children.
Good. I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's no public comment at that meeting.
Okay, you're talking about the Planning Commission?
Commission,
Mr.
correct.
Chairman,
Yes.
I move to concur with the recommendation of the Planning Commission and approve special land use application 18-04 SLU2 for Colleen Severance to permit a group daycare facility at 47080 Exeter Court.
Support?
Motion made by Mr. Flynn, supported by Mr. Viviano. Roll call, please.
Michael Flynn.
Yes.
Vince Viviano.
Yes.
Linda Wilhelm.
Yes.
Doug Wozniak.
Yes.
Stan Grote, yes. Rick Steffikis.
Yes.
And John Remulin.
Yes.
Motion carries, Mr.
Thank you
Chairman.
very much. Julie, you have to come up more often, because when you come up, things go so much more smoothly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good job. Okay. Next, Fire and Police Pension System financial report. Mr. Flynn, I understand that you have some information tonight regarding the status of the police and pension systems. Good. And some very good news, I might add. Very good news. Excellent news, actually. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple slides I wanted to run through. We got the year-end actuarial report at the Fire and Police Pension Board a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to just share it with the public and the board. I know some of you have already talked to you about it behind the scenes, but this will kind of give the public a little bit of overview of some of our history, where we are and where we're going to be going forward. So I've got a couple of slides. The first one is a historical slide, and you can kind of see some different events in the history of the pension fund. The blue line is the market value of assets. The green line is actuarial value of assets, and what that means in English is, since the market fluctuates naturally throughout the year over year, sometimes you have a really great year, sometimes you might have a really bad year, and the hope is that all averages out over time. And so with the pension fund actuarial value, we smooth it over a 5-year period. So that green line represents the 5-year smoothing, so it doesn't quite always look exactly the same as the blue line. And then the red line, of course, is our liability, and you can see some of the historical events there with the liability. That's basically how much we expect to owe in today's dollars to pay the policemen and firemen when they retire. Now you can see the biggest one was when we closed the pension, and we're going to talk some more about that in the next few slides, because that turns out, hindsight being 20/20, one of the smartest things we could have ever done, because if we didn't do it, we were going to be a world of hurt, and I'll explain that in the next couple of slides. And then the next big thing where we dipped from over 100% funded to just below 100% funded was when we updated the mortality tables, and we're going to talk some more about that moving forward too, because the mortality tables are very, it's basically a guess of how long you think your people are going to live. Right. And there's been a lot of controversy, and we were encouraged to adopt the mortality table a couple of years back that has since been discredited. So the one that we adopted is the closest thing to what we think is a good guess at the moment, because it's public employees, or it's blue collar employees, but it's not public first responders. And we're going to talk more about that mortality table coming out soon, which may be good news for the township. And then you can kind of see through the end of 2017 where we ended up. Okay, next slide I just thought was interesting, because we did close this pension to new hires, and this is a Social Security table I found online. And most people, if you ask them and they're thinking it through, a lot of them, especially younger people, don't expect Social Security to be solvent very long. And you can kind of see They started in the 70s at almost 4 workers per retiree, and by 2030 they expected to be about just below 2.5 workers per retiree. But if you go to the next slide, and this is a very graphic illustration about why our business model for the defined benefit pension system was unsustainable. Because you see, even the year right after we closed the pension, we were almost paying one person not to work for every person that we're paying to work. And so now we're paying, since the system is closed and we've had some retirements, that number, that balance is expected to shift eventually, so they'll all be retired versus working because it's a closed system. But you can see how that 1-to-1 ratio was not a sustainable business model. But if you go to the next slide, this will kind of highlight our year-end results for 2017. You can see we had an absolutely phenomenal year. We did almost 18% this year, which is literally unheard of. That puts us at the top of the line of all public plans. I can tell you, some of you know that I'm a director on the Michigan Education Trust, which is a $1 billion fund, and the geniuses at the state could only do 12% last year. So I certainly rubbed their noses in that, but we had a very good year compared to last year, and this is going to save the township some money too, because as you see there at the bottom, I put a note that said we outperformed expectations by $10 million last year. So we've made $10 million more than we expected to last year, which is going to come into play. So you go to the next slide. This highlights our funded status, and you can see that kind of Loch Ness monster-looking red graph there on the right. That kind of shows the history of the funded status, and you can see where we fully funded it when we made some adjustments to the mortality table, and then now this year where we're back to basically 100%. We're in fact 97.97% funded on an actuarial basis, which again is that 5-year smoothing. But if you discount that smoothing, you can see that we're actually overfunded on a market basis, 103.5%, so called 104% funded on a market basis, which is fantastic. Okay, next slide. You can see this graph. This is, again, back to expectations, because these are all basically numbers and guessing what's going to happen. It's educated guesses, but they're guessing. And you can see this is what we expected our next several years to look like in terms of what the township had to pay, normal cost and amortization. And the amortization, the blue part, is the bite in the butt for the township and therefore the taxpayers, because that's the additional costs other than what you would have to normally pay in order to keep the system solvent and to keep the system funded. And you can see that gray line there is basically the funded status. So we would expect it to be back to 100% funded by 2029 based on that amortization schedule. But if I go to the next slide, and this is where that $10 million comes in. And this was, again, great news, because of that extra $10 million that we made last year, we expect to be fully funded by the end of next year. And then you can see up to 2030, we'd be 110% funded. But the big bonus here is you can see that those blue bars, which is the extra money that the township has to pay, are virtually non-existent. So if you put them side by side in the next slide, what does that mean in English? In real math, that means because of the success we had last year, we're going to save over $4.5 million over the next 5 years in cash flow, and that would have been real money that we were expecting to spend that now we won't have to.
And that's a headline right there.
That is a headline, yeah. Now, coming back, and I'm just going to put an exclamation point on this. I know because Mr. Wozniak and Mr. Stathakis, when we came on in 08, we kind of had a hunch that the business model was unsustainable, and this kind of illustrates what would have happened if we didn't close the pension. If we didn't close the pension, this is what we would have expected to pay through 2027, which is a lot of money, as you can see. And then the next slide shows what we're actually going to pay. So it's far less, and that includes the bond, the loan to the DPW, normal costs, and amortization. But then if you put these two graphs side by side, and I was in Mr. Stathakis' office the other day and we were talking about this slide, this is only the next 5 years. If you add up the next 15, the next 20, had we not closed that pension system, it would have either bankrupted the township, where we would have had MedStar for ambulance and we would have been calling our friends at the county for police, or we would have had to have a massive, massive tax increase. Because this is $10 million that we didn't have, and that's just in the next 5 years. So that's an exclamation point. So it's really a hats off to the unions and to the board working together to get that done, because it literally saved the police department and may have, in fact, saved the fire department as well. Okay, so where are we today? That's the next slide. This sheet basically outlines our investments, and you can see they're very well diversified. And as an example of that, those of you that follow financial news, you saw February was a tough month for the Dow. And the S&P down 4%, Dow down 4.3%, but you can see our portfolio only dipped 3%, which puts us about flat for the year, which we are very optimistic about. So you can see that we're hedged, and on that subject, we're gonna talk about that too. So since we expect to reach over, looking forward, we're talking about de-risking the portfolio and updating the assumptions. The public mortality is expected to be spring 2019, which will be a fireman and a policeman mortality table, and that will, in our estimation, further improve our funded status, because that'll be a mortality table that more closely matches the people that we're actually paying. In terms of assumptions reductions, since we expect to be in an overfunded status moving forward, what that means is we have right now a 7.5% annual expected rate of return, which is how we calculate our liability. So therefore, in order to make that return, you have to have more equities, less fixed income, meaning stocks versus bonds in general terms. But if we start reaching the more we reach overfunded status, we can lower that assumption maybe to 7, maybe to 6.5, and then you can de-risk the portfolio. So once we get to that 105, 110% funded status, we can continue to de-risk the portfolio, get more on the fixed income sides, meaning bonds and that type of product, and have less market influence on our bottom line. And then finally, Public Act 202, a lot of people have heard about that coming down from Lansing. The state treasurer is eventually going to put out assumptions that we will have to include reports on, which will show our funded status, but because we're so conservative in Shelby Township, we don't expect that that's going to affect us, because we're 7.5, which is a very conservative number on this fund, and on the OPEB, we're 6.5. On the subject of the OPEB, we have the draft report, and in a couple of months, I'll give you the same dog and punny on the OPEB, which is also not as pretty as this, but it's a lot prettier than it was 2 years ago, and we'll talk about that too.
And even prettier than 2008.
Yes.
By a long shot. Okay. Well, Mr. Flynn, outstanding report. Thank you very much for your leadership. And boy, folks, that's real money. You know, as I look at these numbers, I'm just thinking since 2008, I'm looking to you too, Mr. Wozniak, I would think probably the 2 or 3 major things that have happened. Obviously, number one was shutting down that $30 million Justice Center / police station that we could not afford. We were borrowing 100% of that money, so we shut that down. This is definitely is right up there with that. And I guess the other thing is we're building infrastructure, but we're building it slowly. We're paying cash, and we're saving from our the money that we generate as surpluses. So I would think those are probably the 3 very significant activities since 2008. And I think this board has done a remarkable job keeping costs in check and keeping our government only as big as it needs to be. So good job to all you board members. Appreciate that. Mr. Grove.
Ready to make a motion to receive that glowing report from Michael Flynn and file the Treasurer's Fire and Police Pension System Financial Report.
Second. Who was that? Okay, motion made by Mr. Grote, seconded by Mr. Vermeulen. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thanks again, Mr. Flynn. And by the way, that Education Trust, how is that doing? I know you're on that committee, State of Michigan.
They're actually overfunded as well, so they're a little more conservative, but we are talking to them. There's some things we've done in Shelby. I actually had a conference call with the director a couple of weeks back, and he's the highest paid government official in the state of Michigan, is the investment advisor for that trust. And we're going to look at doing some of the things that we've done in Shelby that we've had some success with. So, but they're in good shape too.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Item number 3, school resource officer. Well, as an unfortunate sign of the times, we are asked to consider this next item. We have been provided with an agreement that will allow our Shelby Township Police Department to assign 2 full-time police officers to the Eisenhower and Utica High Schools. If approved tonight, the goal is to provide a safe environment and to reduce school violence. Essentially, this agreement provides that Utica Community Schools will pay 50% of the salary and benefit costs associated with the officers assigned. Also, the school district will pay 100% of the officer's school-related overtime. Chief, did I say that correctly? Spot on? Okay, good. Motion?
Supervisor?
Yes, Ms. Wilhelm.
I move to concur with Police Chief Robert Schlide and approve and sign the agreement between Utica Community Schools and Shelby Township to allocate 2 full-time school resource officers with 1 officer assigned to Dwight D. Eisenhower High School and 1 officer assigned to Utica High School.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Wilhelm, seconded by Mr. Wozniak. Questions? Discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And I want to say hats off to Chief Schlide and also Dr. Christine Johns. They've been working on this even before these shootings took place, so it wasn't something that they had to hurry up and organize. They were actually ready to go, and something that Chief Schlide's been talking about since the first day he got here in Shelby Township some 3 years ago. Has it been that long? 3 years? Yes, I guess it has been. Okay, good. Thank you very much, Chief Schlide. Item number 4, new hires. This item is also another one pertaining to our police department. Police Chief Schlide is seeking board concurrence with his recommendation to hire 3 replacement probationary level officers and 1 additional patrol new hire. The replacement officers will void the recent retirements. The 4th officer is needed due to the recent placement of the school resource officers in local high schools. Motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Wozniak.
I move to concur with Police Chief Robert Schlide and approve the hire of 3 replacement probationary entry-level patrol officers and 1 patrol officer new hire. Background investigation will be completed and the officers will be selected from either the Police and Fire Civil Service Commission patrol officer eligibility list or from the approved cadet program. Officers chosen for hire will be approved by the Human Resource Director and will begin probationary entry-level patrol officer employment no sooner than May 1st, 2018, and no later than December 31st, 2018.
Support?
Motion made by Mr. Wozniak, supported by Mr. Vermeulen. Also, is there anything you want to add, Deputy Chief Coyle? Okay, good. And we have how many officers? 71? Thank you very much. Okay, good. And we will have 71 when this is completed. Okay, great. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for that, and thanks for being here, Chief Coyle. We do appreciate that. Number 5, the department head and elected official compensation resolutions. We received a memo from our Human Resource Director, Lisa Suda, as a result of the 2017 job analysis and compensation adjustments for department heads and elected officials. If approved tonight, no employees would receive an increase of more than 10%, nor would any department head receive a pay decrease. And the department head's compensation schedule will continue to adjust in accordance with the supervisory contract between the township and the supervisory unit. The modifications for the elected officials will not go into effect until after the next election of 2020. Going forward, the adjustment for the elected officials will be based on the annual consumer price index and will be adjusted accordingly each year, I should say each election cycle. Any increases in wages for elected officials will be effective at the beginning of the next new term. So I think one question was, will this be a cost to the township? I believe the first cost will be right around $7,200. That's what because remember, some supervisors are not getting a raise, and I think there are 3 or 4 getting a raise, and those 3 or 4 will be getting about $7,000. So that's the total cost to the township on July 1st, I believe. Okay, good. I think that was the only question.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, yes, Mr. Flynn.
I'd move to approve the compensation resolutions for township department heads and elected officials as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Flynn, seconded by Mr. Vermeulen. Any questions, discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just for the benefit of the folks at home, what we're doing here, I think some people will remember that we did pay for that study that you mentioned. The whole idea here is to get all of the workers here at the township, and there's a couple hundred of them in line with the private sector, and we paid for that extensive study to do that so that we're not guessing, and it's both a recruitment and retention thing, and it's also that I'm not going to single out any specific job, but we do have some jobs that are wildly overpaid, and so getting these positions in line is the right answer from a business standpoint and a taxpayer standpoint for getting good quality service and good quality people. And then the second thing, which is a large component, is the general employees contract is up in the middle of the summer here, and this is a controllable on our part in terms of the supervisors. It's a non-negotiable type item because it's a management decision. So basically what we wanted to do, if this passes tonight, is walk the walk and talk the talk and say to the general employees, we're willing to do it for ourselves. We'd like to do it for the whole township because this is the most fair way to do things.
Yes, and I don't know of a better and more objective way of doing it than to find out what all of our neighbors are paying so that we can be competitive. As Mr. Flynn said, yes, we've got some too high. We've got some a little on the low side. So we're hopefully going to bring this to where it needs to be. And I think this will be probably not only fair, but I think it will make negotiations a lot more objective. Thank you. Mr. Viviano.
Any of the job classifications going to get combined in any of the areas?
No, on the supervisory, the only thing, and this is another thing that we corrected, is we had a list that, and the reason I'm answering some of these questions is Mrs. Suda and I kind of worked on this together over the last several months. We basically had, if you're a supervisor, you're a supervisor, and it doesn't matter if you're the head of the DPW or you're the assessor, and those jobs are wildly different. So we took each job classification. So the answer to your question is a short yes. So each supervisory classification now has their own classification and their own salary range based on market forces for that
position.
That position, right? Not just, so we're not going to pay one guy this and one guy this arbitrarily anymore.
Right. Okay. Any other questions, discussion? Roll call, please. Yeah, I think Mr. Huth requested that.
Resolution, that was my
Okay,
thought, Mr. Chairman.
Michael Flynn.
Yes.
John Vermeulen.
Yes.
Vince Viviano.
Yes.
Lynn Wilhelm.
Yes.
Doug Wozniak.
Yes.
Stan Grote, yes, and Rick Steffikis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Sorry, you did a good job for not having an advance notice. Okay, great, thank you. Item number 6. Well, I know a lot of you folks are interested in this next item. Our Stony Creek Trail Bridge Reconstruction Project has been selected as one of, in fact, I'm looking at the top 10 priorities. It is number 3 on our top 10 priority list, and last year I think was number 8 or 9. So yes, the money is there. I think it's about $450,000. Thank you, Ms. Suda, for coming tonight. And yes, we are going to spend that money, but we can't spend it yet. Tonight, we are asked to approve a proposal submitted by the ASSI Environmental Company to perform a wetland assessment, threatened and endangered species assessment, and to begin this DEQ permit application process ASAP. The cost of this engineering work will be $12,000. And before I ask for any questions or comments, I do want to say that, unfortunately, we can't do this assessment during the winter. It's got to be done during the when things start turning green in spring and summer months. And it's about a 6-month-long process. So it will not be completed till September, and I hope that the bridges will begin construction sometime in September. If we had it our way, we would just go ahead and start now, but of course, it's important that we get this permit before we do anything. So on that note, would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wozniak.
I move to approve the recommendation of the PRM Director, Joe Youngblood, and the Township Engineer, Carol Thurber, and approve the proposal submitted by ASTI Environmental to perform a wetland delineation and jurisdictional assessment, threatened and endangered species assessment, and DEQ permit application preparation for the Stony Creek Trail Bridges Replacement Project. The total contract price is $12,000. This project is included in the capital improvement plan with funds available in General Ledger 427-475 972-300.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Wozniak, seconded by Mrs. Wilhelm. Any questions, discussion?
Just quickly, the last time we had a go-round, if anybody can recall, we didn't come out on the sweet end of that deal because we skipped a couple steps. This was before we were on the board, though.
Oh, I think he's talking about that soccer dome. Whoops, I shouldn't have said that. Is that what he's talking about?
The dome that will remain nameless, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And it
Yeah,
predated
okay.
us. Very good to point that out.
I think they skipped more than 2 steps.
Yeah, so
But
this
we're
is
not
the-
skipping it. We are doing this correctly and.
By the book.
By the book. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay, good. $12,000. Okay, so we have the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Our 7th item is the toilet room renovation, 2nd level. Well, our building director wears many hats. He's sitting right here in the audience. And now he's the one proposing to be the general contractor, so to speak. He didn't really propose that. We asked him to do it. These restrooms have not been updated in approximately, Tim, 45 years or so. So Mr. Wood is suggesting that he does not need to seek help from a general contractor. Instead, he's proposing to hire subcontractors and purchase materials directly. He estimates that the renovation work for these restrooms will not exceed $7,000. He expects to refinish the floors and the walls and the fixtures and update the accessories. And Mr. Wood, as long as you're here, can you come up and tell us why we couldn't do this before? Somebody came up with a question from the audience. Why couldn't we do this when we did all the other renovations?
The township has an ongoing program to spread some of these projects over multiple budgets and to do it in a way that's managed. So, as you just mentioned, in this particular case, we're likely going to save some money by having the work done in-house versus having a general contractor. So that's the primary reason.
Okay, good. So money savings is what's driving this. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Flynn.
I'd move to approve an amount not to exceed $7,000 to be used for material and contractor expenses to renovate the lavatories on the 2nd level of Township Hall. The project shall be administered by the building director, Tim Wood, with funds to be taken from General Ledger 101-902-975-000 and amend the budget accordingly.
Support.
Motion made by Mr. Flynn, seconded by Mr. Viviano. Discussion, questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Flynn, were you going to say something?
Yeah, it's just for the folks at home. We're not spendthrifts. These bathrooms are 45 years old.
Yeah, that's for sure. And believe me, they look like it too. So anyway, one day they'll look clean again. Okay, the janitors do a great job. It's nothing to do with them, but there's only so much you can do with them. It's a lot of aging material. So, Mr. Wood, good job. Thank you very much. Yep. At the request of Fire Chief Swinkowski, we are asked to revisit the motion that was made for construction of Fire Station Number 4. You know what? I'm going to let him come up and explain this. Only he can explain this. No, actually, it's all good. I mean, it's just something that, we have to do. And with all the money you're saving, being general contractor, accountant, and all of that, we're okay with it.
Yeah, like I said, it's not too bad. I mean, it obviously is $190,000, but we saved a lot of money up front because we, married it right off of the station we just completed. So we saved a ton of money from the engineering and the construction and all the design portion of that. So obviously, many meetings ago, I believe it was back in July, we approved it. And as we got through our approval process, lo and behold, we had to send in additional information to the wonderful DEQ. And that's where things went south for 5 months. It started off being okay, then it wasn't, then it was, then it wasn't. And they decided that we had to put a retention pond at the north end of the property to retain the water before it goes on to the 100-year floodplain shelf, before it gets into the river. And then we had to make it bigger, and then we had to revise the plans again, and then spent I don't know how many months determining the opening, like the low spot on the backside of the retention pond, so how much water should flow out of it. It just turned into a winter nightmare. And obviously, revision after revision after revision of the site plans and sending information back and forth ran up the costs. And while that was going on in the fall, the road commission came out and determined that we have to put a traffic arm by the driveway because we were too close to the intersection. And, well, in fact, the director of the road commission came out, and him and I walked the property, and I said, there are several other stations that are in the same boat that do not require a signal. Because we can activate the signal and stop the traffic and just come out of the station and use the westbound lanes, hit Shannon, and go up. Well, he didn't like the turning radius and the size of the driveway. We had to literally move the building 5.5 feet west. And it went back and forth, but he wants a signal arm to stop the eastbound traffic on just west of the driveway. So between the retention pond and that was about $100,000 in costs, $75,000 for the traffic and about $33,000 for the retention pond to re-engineer the site. And obviously it's been since July, and we got hit with some tariffs on our pipe and all that's going through. So sprinkler system costs went up about $6,000 in the permit costs, and we had to add in some additional fees for AEW because they basically gave us a very, very low price, but we've already exceeded the budgets for the design and site plan, so we have to add a little bit more money into that, about $9,000 to cover all of the revisions of the site plans that have gone on back and forth. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, and to clarify my remark, we're not okay with it, but we're on controllables, which there's nothing we can do. But actually,
well, yeah, I mean, like I said, obviously we ran about $9,000 in costs, but the $33,000 of putting the retention pond in and then having to tear down the structures, that is not additional money we're having to spend. It's money that we weren't going to spend up front, so it's not really an additional burden. It's just extra fees we have to pay, whereas Station 5, we had to run sewer, about 800 feet down the road, so which was a cost. So, realistically, you're kind of balancing out the cost. There's really no difference. We were just hoping to save that money, and as compared to it before.
What's the increase due to the overall cost? Is that about 5%, 10%? What is it?
Oh, yeah.
I forgot.
Maybe 10%, because I think it was $1,999,000 like that. So we're looking 10%. Maybe just under 10%.
Yeah.
And this will be the last renovation for all the fire stations for a few years, anyway.
Oh, I'm done. I'm not going through this again. I'm done with fire stations. No, like I said, it's been an easy process, and a lot of it's been on the AEW. They're the ones that had to deal with the headache. I just had to take the phone call and say,
yeah, okay.
That was it.
Motion.
I'd like to concur with the recommendation of Fire Chief Jim Swinkowski and approve the additional funds of $190,471 for the construction of Fire Station 4. Funds are to be taken from General Ledger 427-340-985000 and amend the budget accordingly.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Viviano, seconded by Ms. Wilhelm. Any questions for the chief? Comments? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Chief, thanks for coming in and explaining all that.
Oh, not a problem. And like I said, even if you look at the total cost now for Station 4, which I think is just a little bit over $2 million, and again, we have $75,000 in there just as a contingency that we don't expect to pay. This is still a very efficient, inexpensive way of doing it because most departments are spending $3 to $4 million to build a station of this size and caliber. So, like I said, in the end, we're obviously trying to be the best stewards of taxpayers' money and making sure everything we do is we're doing it correctly for the right reasons.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we answered the questions from the audience about overriding costs, why, you explained that, how much, you explained that too. I think we got it all. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, reappointments for the DDA. The DDA appointments are Greg Gagnon, Jeff English, and Ms. Lynn Wilhelm. Motion, please.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Flynn.
Move to approve the reappointment of Greg Gagnon and Lynn Wilhelm to the Downtown Development Authority for a 4-year term expiring March 31st, 2021, and Jeff English to a 4-year term expiring March 31st, 2022.
Support.
Okay, Mr. Flynn made the motion, seconded by Mr. Viviano. Any comments, discussion, questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And the Downtown Development Authority, just to remind everybody, the primary mission is to promote economic development and improve property values along Van Dyke Road from right around 21 Mile to 26 Mile Road. And all DD activities support this mission. So thank you for serving another term, Ms. Wilhelm. And also, they will be sponsoring or presenting the fireworks, second annual. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I know you're working hard on that too.
Yes.
July 3rd.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, well, having conducted business, we will now go to announcements. Mr. Viviano?
None, sir.
Okay, Ms. Wilhelm.
Yes, I have a couple. It's that time of the year again. April 28th will be the Household Hazardous Waste and Electronic Recycling. This is a free event for Shelby residents only. Starts at 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. here on the Shelby Township campus. Some of the things that we're accepting, so you can start collecting those, are household and car batteries, oil-based and latex paint, let's see, pills and patches, liquid medications. For an entire list, you can go to our website to see what that's all about. But we will have that on April 28th. I'll remind you at the next meeting too, but it's time to collect all of those items. And then Saturday, May 5th, two leading charitable organizations here in Shelby Township, the Macomb Charity Connect and the Utica Shelby Rotary Club, invite you to the third annual Kentucky Derby celebration. These two organizations raise money for many nonprofit organizations in our community. They'll be running for the Roses at the Detroit Sportsman Club. It's a $45 ticket, comes with dinner buffet, free mint julep. There'll be a lot of prizes. Ladies, wear your hats and fanciest hats, and men, your most dapper bow tie. You can purchase tickets at MacombCharityConnect.org. Hope to see you there. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Wilhelm. Mr. Flynn?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Mr. Grote?
I have a couple of things, Mr. Chairman. First of all, the Shelby Township Cleanup Day is on Saturday, April 28, 2018. Volunteers are always needed and should register between 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. at Shelby Township Senior Center, located at 51670 Van Dyke. Cleanup locations will be assigned during registrations. In the event of bad weather, please call 586-739-7540. Another one is the clerk's office. It's my office. Will be holding a job fair at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, April 4th, which is tomorrow, in the lower level conference room in Shelby Township Hall at 52700 Van Dyke Avenue. The job fair is open to those interested in serving as an election worker for May 8th special election of 2018. All registered voters are encouraged to apply. Only applicants must be U.S. citizens and registered to vote. Those folks that worked previously in the elections do not need to apply. They will be notified and it will be brought back to work again. Any further questions, please call my office at 586-731-5102. Now, because of special election, we do great business in processing passports, but because of special elections and the volume we do in my office, we are temporarily suspending passport processing, and we do that every election. This is, don't be alarmed, it's nothing unusual. We'll be closed, suspending the processing from April 23rd through May 11th. Please visit www.travel.state.gov for other passport acceptance facilities during our suspension. And then we're going to reopen with the passports after May 11th. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Grote. Mr. Vermeulen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of things. We have an event, the 4th Annual Chamber of Cares Charity Basketball and Taste Fest. This will happen Thursday, April 19th between 5:30 and 8 p.m. It will feature the Parkway, located at the Parkway Christian School, Metro Parkway in Sterling Heights. 5:30 to 6:30, you can enjoy food samples from local restaurants. 6 to 7, introduction and presentation by Henry Ford Hospital. And 7 to 8, the basketball game between Sterling Heights Fire Police and Shelby Fire and Police. Tickets, you can get tickets through shrcci.com. Call 586-731-5400. And the second one I have is for the Shelby Golden K, which I am a proud member of. It's an organization that serves the need of the greatest generation senior citizens and even has some projects on for handicapped youth to be able to use our parks fully. On Monday, April 9th, it will meet at 8:45 a.m. The guest speaker for that particular day will be Chief Robert Shelby of the Shelby Police Department, and ShelbyTV will be on hand. We are looking for new members, and please feel free to stop by and enjoy us and enjoy our company and maybe consider joining our organization. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Remula. Mr. Wozniak.
Yes. By the way, John, I'll be coming to that. That's a great event. So, National Library Week, April 9th to the 14th. Celebrate with us all week. Starting Monday, April 9th, we'll be hiding golden tickets and books and DVDs, audiobooks, and in fun nooks and crannies in the library. Find a golden ticket and redeem it at the checkout desk for a small library-themed prize. On Tuesday, April 10th, from 1 to 5, stop by for a piece of cake to celebrate our favorite week of the year. Secondly, Saturday, April 14th at 1:30 p.m., Spring Science Fun. Technow Kids invites elementary school-aged children to complete science and technology challenges and experiments related to the season of spring. Space is limited to 25 children. Please register at the library. Ages 5 to 11 are accepted. Tuesday, April 17th at 11 a.m., join Supervisor Rick Stathakis as he leads our story time for preschoolers as our special guest reader. That's going to be an event. So, all right, Senior Center. The Senior Center will be hosting the Kiwanis Volunteer Satellite Group as they work on community service projects on Wednesday, April 11th from 1 to 4. No special skills are required, and you can drop by in any time. That's, again, from 1 to 4 p.m. The Wonderland Dinner Dance is in April out of the storybooks of our called Wonderland Dinner Dance on Friday, April 20th. Music of Tri-City Plus and a delicious buffet. Tickets are $16 and can be purchased at the Senior Center. The Spring Flea Market and Bake Sale is on Thursday and Friday, May 3rd and 4th from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. Donations of usable household goods are now being accepted. No clothes, please. Thank you for supporting the great fundraiser for the Senior Center. And other daily events that go on at the Senior Center is the aerobic exercise classes, the Senior Knit and Crochet Group, the Senior Choir, the Senior Shanghai Rummy Group, the Senior Stitchers, and the Senior Canasta. So there's a lot of things that go on in the Senior Center. I would suggest if you're looking for things to do, you should stop by there. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Eisenhower. We want to mention Eisenhower Cheer?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, their dance team.
Dance team. Yeah.
They're the U.S. national champions now. They will have a spaghetti dinner at the Palazzo on April 11th at 6 p.m. You can find out more information on their Facebook page, but they are looking for donations, and we should be very proud that they're representing our community.
Yep. So that would be a week from tomorrow.
Yes,
Okay, great. And what time does that start?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Okay, great. Thank you. Great. I just have one announcement. I think we've already talked about this at the beginning of the meeting. Masterclass event, American Pride and Country Song. Well, it's a fundraiser. It's a fundraiser for our memorial site out on campus. And it will be Sunday, June 10th at Coyote Joe's, 49440 Ryan Road, right here in Shelby Township. It starts at 2 o'clock. Admission is $20 per adult, $10 for kids 12 and under, children free under 3, and of course free to veterans. All profits, again, will be donated to our Shelby Township Memorial Site. And if you have any questions, please call Phil Randazzo, our Veterans Events Coordinator, at 586-739-4046. And that should do it for announcements. Now it's time for business from the floor. We conduct township business here consistent with the way a business meeting is handled. Here, each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to discuss business that's relevant to the operation of our terrific township. Is there anyone who would like to have like to come up? Yes. Okay, yes.
Thomas Turner, Shelby Township. Noticing in the bill runs that were approved tonight, there was some expenses in the police department. And I'd like you to explain what these expenses are in reference to each one getting a certain amount of money all the way through to the health program. Let's see if I can find the right page here. On page 17 and 18, you have 16 police officers getting money anywhere from $185 and up. And it totaled out to a total of $2,621. And the description is PA 152, decision interest. Now, what is this, and why are we paying this kind of money to police officers? And none of these police officers are retired, except I just heard that one of them just recently retired. So that is number one question on my mind. Why are the police officers getting this extra gratuity? And then in the clerk's department, we have an employee there, Tracy Ritchie, who has a tuition expense of over $1,128. Why is that? Why are we paying full tuition expenses and the employees paying none of the tuition expenses for their own education? After all, they're getting this education at township expense to advance their position in the township and to make more money. So they put nothing in and get everything out. Sounds like you, Mr. Supervisor. Well, I guess that'll do it for now. Except I'm keeping track of membership costs. And as we go along, I'll be bringing that up. And maybe you board members will finally ask yourselves, why are the township employees belonging to so many different organizations that amount to nothing more than an out-of-the-township free lunch?
Okay, well, the first thing is there's no such thing as a free lunch. Everything's prepaid. So that's number one. Number two, if you want to be specific and tell me about which membership, we can explain that to you. But these are good questions about health care, or whatever you were talking about. I don't have at my fingertips.
I can answer that one.
Oh, you want to answer that?
The PA 152 thing, if memory serves, that's as a result of a lawsuit that was filed by the Command Officers Association that we lost.
Okay, there you go. As far as tuition from the clerk's office, you know, I know that's contractual. So when we negotiate the contracts, that's one thing we negotiated. And, you know, I can sit here and say we got a great deal or we didn't get a good deal, but the fact of the matter is it's negotiated, and that's what we did. So it would help out a lot, though, if you have these very specific questions about very specific items. Come to me or come to any one of the board members before the meeting so we can look this up, and we don't have to be 99% sure. We can give you the answer and give it to you with 100%. We want to be 100% correct. So that's my ask, if you could. So good questions. Thank you for coming up. We do appreciate it. Anyone else tonight? Yes.
Norm Jajo, Shelby Township. Dictionary description, conservatives. Opposed to maintaining existing institutions or views. Opposed to change. That's a fact. The board has made up of hypocrites or false pretenders to the virtue of piety. Fact. Several items on the board has approved. Two of them in particular, a deputy supervisor, deputy clerk, increasing the stipends that the various committees go. They all voted them the increase in these expenses. It's costing the taxpayers money, spending thousands of dollars. And of course, too, another fact, Doug Wozniak, thank you. Really appreciate the fact that you made the motion to cut down our time up here talking about the different agenda items. Thank you, Doug. We really appreciate that. We're a taxpayer. We're paying your salary here, too. Why did we get the shaft? Well, that's already been done. And one thing, too, that is very discouraging, too, supervisor. You had been calling the people from the audience. These people have been in your office. You know them by name. Today it was, yes, come on up. Before it was, you, come up. We'd like to be addressed by our Mr., Ms., or Mrs. when we come up here. I mean, that's very inappropriate, and especially for you being a person where you are at. One other thing, the township engineer, that's a contractual engineer, month to month. Have you looked into hiring a township engineer on the staff here? We could save hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking millions of dollars that we have been spending for these outsourced engineers. I mean, according to what your attorney says, that it's a contractual month to month. We're not binding on that. And one other thing that's really disappointing here, I mean, you're up here. Have any of you driven down Shelby Road?
30 seconds.
That's like a washboard. I mean, you can go out some of these dirt roads that are better than that. I mentioned that years ago when they were doing some construction here, that roads are going to be tore up. It's really bad at Shelby from 25 miles south, and even south of 23 mile. It is a washboard. In fact, you have to drive in the middle of the lanes in order to avoid the ruts that are there. I see you're doing some of the major roads. What about taking our citizens in Shelby?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll go ahead and start with the roads first. Shelby Road, I do agree with you. Before I even get to the Shelby Road, I want to say that, you know, believe it or not, Shelby Township, together with the federal government and the county and us, and we have spent about $65 million over the last 10 years. Seems like a lot of money, and I think we've spent more per capita than anyone else, and even though we probably do have the best roads in Macomb County, they're not nearly good enough. They're not nearly to what they need to be. So we're going to continue putting in. We're ready. We're looking for a partner right now. The partner, of course, is a county, and a county needs to be paid by the state. And once that payment comes through, our partner will be the county. We're ready with cash. And I know you've been talking about Shelby Road as well.
Shelby Road is one of them.
Is one of them, yeah. So we have the cash in the bank. We're just waiting. We cannot and will not pay for our road by ourselves. If we do that one time, guess what happens? When we need something done, the county will say, you did it before, you can do it again. So no, we have to do our 50%, and we cannot go beyond that. But we can't do a half a road. We have to do a whole road. So when we get the money, we have the money. When a county gets the money from the state, we're ready. And Shelby Road is on the list. So is 22 Mile. That money is already in the bank. 21 Mile, that money's all in the bank. We've got some subdivision roads. Money's in the bank. We're waiting. And we got a lot of work to be done on our roads. But we need a partner. As far as the name, I'm very sorry you feel that way. I really am. But, you know, if I forget someone's name, or if I call someone by name, this is where I get in trouble. Someone will call me and say, why do you call him by name and you don't call the other people by name? Well, because I don't know the other people. And so what I do now, and I don't get any phone calls anymore, is I don't use names, and I try to be respectful. But if I have not been respectful to you, I do apologize. I don't mean any disrespect. And as far as spending millions and millions of dollars or thousands and thousands, I'm very proud of the work that this board, everybody on my right and everybody on my left, has done. We've worked together as a team. We've had operational surpluses ever since Mr. Wozniak and Mr. Flynn and I have been here. We've always had an operational surplus. People say, how are you paying for all this in cash? How are you paying down your long-term debt? Well, what we do is we don't spend money until we have it. When we have it, we spend it. I wish we could do something first before the court, but we have to do the court first because it's a hazard. And I know we've been talking about it for 16 years, but you know what? We've been saving for this court for 10 years, and now we're ready to build it. And now we have the cash, and we're going to get that done. But because of our operational surpluses, we're able to do a lot of things that other townships and cities cannot do, and that's just the way we manage. Call it fiscal conservatism, whatever you want to call it, it's okay, but that's the way we manage. And, you know, as far as wages, you know, we have fewer people now than we did in 2008, maybe by 1 or 2. When you look at full year 2008 and full year 2017, we're actually down. But when you look at the wages and benefits that we pay, we're 4.5% fewer dollars. Let me repeat that. If you look at 2008, 2009, the end of 2009, and when you look at the end of 2017, our wages and benefits are actually, we have savings. We're paying fewer dollars in full year 2017 than we were in 2009. And if I had the numbers for 2008, that gap would even be larger. The savings would be even larger. So show me a community that has done that. Show me a community that has operational surpluses every year, and show me a community that pays its bills with cash, with no borrowing and no bonding, and I will say that's a successful community. The cornerstone of a very strong community is its finances. But at the same token, you heard Police Chief Shelby, he's been up here many times, asking for more space in the police station. We're giving it to him. We're going to break ground in a couple of weeks. That's not going to be a 17,000 square foot building anymore. It's going to be 25,000 square feet because the police department needs it, and we need to support our police department. They're getting it, and they're getting many other things. We've got now 5 fire stations, not 4, 5, paid everything in cash. And why is that? Because public safety is very important to this community. Public safety, finances, and the third is quality of life. I know Mr. Flynn's been working on a splash pad. Never thought it would make the top 10, but that's what the citizens wanted. That's what they're going to get. We're spending cash building those bridges, rebuilding them, and everything you look at. Ms. Wilhelm's looking at building a new, she's not, with your money, a new library and senior center, and she's chairing that committee, and I can go down that list. And believe me, you can rest assured that if we don't have the money in the bank, if we don't have the cash, we're not going to build it. And why are we able to do that? Operational surpluses, and you heard the pension report from Mr. Flynn. We're saving $4.2 million cash over 5 years, almost $5 million. So when you add up all these significant activities, that explains why we're able to do what we're doing. But it takes a lot of discipline, it takes a lot of patience, and it really takes discipline when people come up here and say, I want it now, and we've been saying we don't have the money. That's a lot of discipline, but to these people on my right and left, they have that discipline, and I thank you for that. It's a great team effort, and it's not just people up here. We're at the bottom. It's the department heads, and then on top, of course, are the employees. It's all one team. We all work together, and so far, things are getting done. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. Who wants to go next? Yes.
Mr. Stathagas, members of the board, Janet Moore, Shelby Township. I didn't think I'd be able to attend the meeting tonight and had no time to write anything new. But as I thought what I said at the last meeting was important to me, I thought I would repeat it, as I didn't want it to fall on deaf ears. The Scout troop did impress me and was a credit to their leader, also their parents. I was wondering whether any thought had gone into my suggestion to honor our Purple Heart recipients. We know Mr. Randazzo, who I now believe has 2 Purple Hearts. I see the Selfridge Air Base has named a road honoring the Tuskegee Airmen. We don't want to wait until Mr. Randazzo and others are 93 years old before we acknowledge their bravery. Another thing I feel strongly about, and I don't think we have them, are lap belts for every child in our school buses. The children would soon learn how to use them and could practice with a seat belt in the classroom. It could be fun clunk click every trip. I see signs in the yards, "We love our Utica teachers. How about showing our love for our children?" In my opinion, it should be standing room only at this meeting, with much support from teachers and principals on this subject. Perhaps I would get more support if I had coffee and conversation with Pete. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, as far as the state funding is concerned for buses and all that, you might be right. Mr. Lucido might be someone you can talk to about that. One thing that people I know, and some people I've been communicating with, they now do understand that when it comes to the school system, we don't manage the schools at all. They're a separate unit. They get all their money from the state. They're state funded. So anything having to do with schools would be funded by the state of Michigan. So if you want to talk to one of the representatives, that would be great. The other thing you talked about was Purple Heart, and board members pitch in here if I leave anything out.
Correct me if I'm wrong, we did a Purple Heart memorial that was designed by Mr. Randazzo several years ago. At one time it was on 24 Mile. I'm not sure where it is now.
Do you want to add anything to that? Okay. Yeah. So we have a memorial
site. So we do have a dedicated Purple Heart memorial that Mr. Randazzo put together several years ago.
Yeah. So we've already done that. But no, thank you for bringing that up again. So I do appreciate that. Is there anybody else tonight? Yes, and I'll get you, Mr. Churchill.
To your right, podium was moved.
You got it.
Ron Churchill, Mound Road. Mr. Supervisor, you knew my name. You called me by name. You know Mr. J. You know Mr. Turner and others. You could call them by name. All that rhetoric that you just said up there, you just contradicted yourself. You're making yourself look bad. All right? When are you going to get the hint? On another page here, on the last board meeting, I come up here and I talked about the road construction fund that we got almost $1 billion for road repair, and actually it was a little over 800 million, and I was told that I was lying on that figure. Mr. Viviano, you attacked me and said that I was wrong. I had misinformation. When I was on my way sitting back down, I was trying to clarify myself. I meant that the state, I said that the state has gotten almost $1 billion over the last 3 years since they raised the gas tax and the registration fee, plus what they are allowed to take out of the general fund, those three entities combined. And since then, I found out something, that our portion of the road fund at Wayne County, Macomb County, Oakland County, and I believe also Washtenaw County, we are all putting some of that money aside for mass transit. That's why we need more money. Every single time they raise the taxes, it's never enough money. We still need more, more, and more, and more. There's no end to it, no end in sight. This is why, because they're taking a portion of that and putting it aside for mass transit, because this mass transit is going to be pushed upon us sooner or later, whether you like it or not.
30 seconds, Mr. Churchill.
The whole idea is to get everybody out of their cars. It all has to do with Agenda 21. When are you people going to wake up? Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for coming in. No, I do want to clarify one thing. The reason I call you by name is because when I look at you, I am reminded that you're blind, and when I point to you, you don't do anything, so I have to call you by name. You're the only exception to the rule. If anyone else who is legally blind comes to our meeting, I will do that for them as well. So I just want to clarify that. As far as road money is concerned, I don't know about all these numbers. Well, I do, but I don't want to go through them. What I will say is that the number that I know for sure is a $4 million that we've got for all of Macomb County from the state of Michigan. I think that's a good number. Now, $4 million, I think, would be not enough to do Shelby Road, would it? I don't think so. So what I'm saying is we need more money, and hopefully we will be getting more money. So we'll see how that goes. Okay? That's all I can say. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay.
The last time I was here, I had asked for an explanation as to why the township prohibited the simple cottage industry of wood sales. The reply I got after it was filtered down to the lawyer was because the vote by the board was to do so. There was no other explanation. However, there is one time when I recall when Dick did admit why he did enact an ordinance that denied everybody the right to store storage material at their houses, was so he could punish a contractor. He denied everybody in Shelby a simple basic right to punish one person. Is that an ethical act of a civic-minded steward of the township, or the devious act of a dirty, low-down skunk dog? I guess time will tell. But anyways, I've asked the sitting board members who did vote on that, Dougie, Stan, Mikey, why did you vote to prohibit people from making a living? After all, selling firewood is not going to make anybody rich by any means, but what it does do is it does put food on the table and it pays for bills. Do any of you care about that? Is that what your purpose up here is, to deny people their basic freedoms? Something as simple as earning a living, as making firewood? What do you say, Mikey? You're a CMU graduate. You do the treasury. Is there anything wrong with a person making a living? How about you, Stan? Do you think it's wrong for people to be able to do something as simple as sell firewood? Dougie, you're a lawyer.
30 seconds.
What's the legal ramifications for these people if you take away a simple life? What about you, Dick? What do you got to say about this? I'm curious. Or is it going to be the same stony silence that I've gotten from all of you for the last few years? I've been asking you about this. Grazie.
Well, I'm trying to follow all that, and I think I need to buy a bottle or two. Anyway, that's a bizarre accusation. It really is. We don't pass ordinances to punish anyone. We pass ordinances because we think that they're the right thing to do. And it's not one of us up here. Collectively, we all vote. We all have a vote. So, bizarre is what I would call that. But as far as the ordinance is concerned, Mr. Huth, maybe you could clarify a little bit about what that ordinance is. I can't even remember when it was passed, but maybe you can.
It came to the board after it went to the planning commission and a public hearing was held there. And the two hot buttons for that planning commission hearing were whether or not the township would continue to allow driveways to be made of something aside from pavers or cement, and the issue of what we're going to do with firewood. And after public hearing at the planning commission, it was decided that firewood should be neatly stacked along homes, and that we wanted our driveways made out of cement or materials like brick pavers or blacktop. So those two items after the hearing went to the planning commission. There was a recommendation that it come to the township board. Then it came to the township board, and you folks accepted the recommendation of the planning commission, made those changes to the ordinances. So that's the process.
Okay. But I thank you for coming in here and clarifying that, because maybe now a lot of people out there understand exactly the meaning behind that ordinance, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Oh, yes. Sorry. Promised to call on you before, and I never got to you. I apologize.
I want to say something more important, and it's just coming up here flapping my gums. I was told a lot of times from people, why don't they have seat belts in these school buses? Because, you know, these school buses, sometimes they make fast stops and everything, and these kids are playing around back there. How come they don't have seat belt on school buses? They got it on the senior buses. I think they ought to have them on the school buses too, to protect the young kids that don't know any better. And that's one thing I was asked. And another thing on Shelby, that new nursing home they're building down there by 22nd and Shaner, and they're building all these condos. People at the nursing home asked me to ask a few of these questions. That's why I'm asking, which makes sense. Is it gonna be more, one or two X's out of that place? They're putting a lot of condos in there. Or is that all gonna come out on Shaner? And if they're all gonna come out on Shaner, are they gonna widen Shaner? I forgot how many homes at the condos. They're building a lot of them there, and another nursing home in the same area. And I just wondered if they're planning on widening the street, or if they're putting a light in front of the nursing home and the condos. The light would make a big difference, because even I live on Shelby Forest. We have a hard time in rush hour getting out of that park and even getting back in that park. I just wondered if they're planning on widening it, so I told them that I would ask. And as far as calling names, most of the board people knows most of the people that comes here, and I could see why you just call Churchill, because you point to us, we come up. He don't see you pointing, so he's got a right to have his name called. But I think people could come up here and talk about more about they could improve Shelby Township, just like I was talking about Shaner. And if they're going to put a light up there, don't wait till it's all done.
30 seconds, sir.
Okay, it's all done, because I know what I'm going to say in my 3 minutes. I only have 2 more things to say. I knew my 3 minutes would be up. But I tell you, that's what I like to know. And if they could check on it for me, I would appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, Mr. Wozniak, I know you sit on a planning commission, but tell me if I'm wrong here. That development will be open to all the neighborhoods as well.
Correct.
And so Shaner will not be the only exit.
Right.
It'll be connected to neighborhoods.
There were concerns at the beginning when we looked at that site plan. So we wanted to make sure that there was enough traffic going through the neighborhood rather than all coming out on Shaner.
Okay.
And with regard to the assisted living, I think it's going to be like 69 beds.
Okay. In regards to the widening of Shaner, actually, I believe that's actually number 4, widening Shaner Road, north of 23 Mile Road. The federal government is getting out of that business of widening roads. We wanted to widen Shaner, and we are going to reconstruct Shaner, probably not until, Vince helped me out, 2021, 2022. Right. But it necessarily will not be widened, because the government now believes that, they don't have the money anymore, and they don't think that it's a wise investment. So they want to spend more money on reconstruction. So we might get a middle lane. It might be we might be able to get from 2 to 3 lanes because of the middle lane being but we will not get 4 lanes. And also, it doesn't look like we're going to get anything beyond 25 Mile. So we'll probably get something between 23 Mile and between 24 Mile and between 23 Mile and 25 Mile, but nothing up to 26 Mile, because we're not even guaranteed anything between 24 and 25 until the traffic study is conducted and completed sometime a year before the project starts. okay? So with all this other stuff going on in the county with road construction and reconstruction, it doesn't look like Shaner is a high priority, but we're keeping it on a list thanks to Vince Viviano, who's pounding the pavement and making sure that we do get the money spent on Shaner. But as far as 22 Mile, absolutely not. That's not going to be widened. Does that answer your question? School buses, again, you know, I will make some calls, and I'll do what I can do, but you want to call your state representative and, you know, see if, you know, there's funding for that. Right now, funding is really a challenge.
They've been talking about that for 40 years. I remember when I was in grade school, they were talking about that, and they had a reason that they didn't do it. I can't remember what it was.
Well, back in the day, I'm not sure I would have worn mine, but, yeah, no, of course I would have. But, I mean, it really is kind of, you know, you scratch your head like, come on, when's that going to happen? So I agree. It's been talked about for a long time. I'll make some calls. I'll do my part because I believe in it, too. And, okay. Anyone else tonight?
Okay.
Having conducted business, motion made by Mr. Flynn to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wozniak. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for coming, and Mayor Dion, thank you for staying for the whole duration. See you in 2 weeks, everybody.